In the middle of Ueno, a busy district that remains the atmosphere of old Tokyo, lies Shinobazu Pond. City dwellers have considered the area around the pond an oasis of peace and quiet for more than 150 years. Although the pond is in the center of the big city, it's also famous as a visiting spot for migratory wild ducks. Large flocks of wild ducks can be found resting or swimming in the pond in winter. These wild ducks have become accustomed to people, and when they cluster around to get the food people throw to them, they look almost like domestic ducks. Among the birds found in this Tokyo oasis are the common cormorants. Where have they come from? Half of Shinobazu Pond lies within the grounds of Ueno Zoo, and this half of the pond is surrounded by wire netting. Inside the netting are 3 islets where the common cormorants live. This is one of their 2 colonies in Tokyo. It is very rare anywhere in the world to find a colony of as many as 1,000 large birds like common cormorants in such a big city. Even though they live very close to us, not very much is known about common cormorants. What kind of life do these common cormorants have in Tokyo? Around the 1930s, the largest colony of common cormorants in Japan was at Daiganji Temple in Chiba City, to the east of Tokyo. The common cormorants are said to have thrived there for more than 130 years. In their prime, around 1935, between 10,000 and 40,000 common cormorants are thought to have lived there. It's said that when they all took flight together, they darkened the sky. Local people got up early in the morning and went to the woods where the common cormorants lived to pick up any fish the giant birds had dropped, such as flatfish, flatheads, gobbies, and gizzard shad, which they would use as food for their cats and dogs. Today, however, no trace of those days remains. The development of the Keio Industrial District created a tremendous amount of pollution that affected the common cormorants. The only remainder of old times is the big tree in Daiganji Temple, which is still blighted as the result of the droppings of the great flock. This is a monument built by local people who miss the common cormorants. The director of Nakamura Hospital still remembers their heyday, and he had this to say about it.
我々の千葉で生まれて千葉で育ってますから、子供の頃からあそこは花見の名所でしてね、遠足っていうと大ガジなんかよく行ったもんなんです。その頃はもう無数と言いますか、一斉に飛び立ったりなんかしますと。もう羽音でもってなんていうんですか、サワサワサワっていうような羽音がしましてね、春先になりますとヒナが生まれまして、その子供たちのピーピー鳴く音っていうのはもうはるか遠くの方からも聞こえるような状況だったわけです。その頃はもう数千羽とか数万羽とかもう数えきれない量というふうに言われていたわけですが、京葉工業地帯が稼働するようになりまして、昭和30年あたりからでしょうか、空気が悪くなってくると水も悪くなってくるというようなことがありまして、 どんどん数が減っていったと、その後だんだん減りまして、昭和46、7年頃にはついにゼロということになってしまったわけです。
The last of the common cormorants disappeared from Daiganji Temple in 1971. Before that, in 1950, when the number of common cormorants at Daiganji Temple showed the first signs of decreasing, a cage was built in one corner of Shinobazu Pond, at the part where the pond was inside Ueno Zoo, and the common cormorants began to be kept there. The first residents in the cage at Shinobazu Pond were 15 young common cormorants from Daiganji Temple and 2 young common cormorants from Hama Detached Palace. All of the common cormorants at Shinobazu Pond had one of their flight feathers clipped. In 1962, they were left free on the islets in the pond because Ueno Zoo wanted to get rid of the cage. When their next breeding season came around, they built nests on the islets and began raising their young. Soon, young adult common cormorants with unclipped flight feathers from Shinobazu Pond began to go fishing in the Tokyo Bay and nearby rivers. And most of these young adults returned to their home on the islets. By 1973, the number of common cormorants living in Shinobazu Pond had increased to about 200 and was steadily growing. The trees on Shinobazu Pond's 3 islets turned all white, covered by the droppings of the common cormorants, and eventually withered as the number of cormorants continued to increase. Today, the common cormorants build their nests on the islets in man-made trees that were erected by Ueno Zoo in 1979. These man-made trees were built only after careful consideration of the common cormorant's needs. This is one of the colonized islets in Shinobazu Pond. It may look as though these common cormorants just happened to sit wherever they felt like on this particular day. However, the fact is that most of their positions are reserved seats, since each cormorant always takes the same seat. Based on observations of how far apart each bird chooses to perch from its neighbor, the branches were precisely designed and built so that a common cormorant perching on any branch is at least 60 centimeters away from others. Early in the morning, while it's still dark, these common cormorants leave their colony in a flock. What route do they take to go catch fish? For half the year, from April to October, the common cormorants of Shinobazu Pond fly southward to Tokyo Bay and spread into several groups to catch fish, mainly in the area between the river mouths and the third shoal. This chart shows the route they take. In winter, their route varies. Recently, they've established feeding places mainly in the Tone River. In winter, they go upriver to feed, rather than staying near the river mouths, because saltwater fish seem to move to deeper parts of the sea then. Perhaps other common cormorants from Hama Detached Palace have joined them, along with the common cormorants who move only in winter to live with the wild ducks in Koshigaya. The common cormorants may land in flocks on the surface of the water where they think fish are, but to hunt for fish underwater, they dive individually. If they are not successful at fishing, even if there are fish where they are, they move on to another spot. Some fishermen claim that common cormorants are harmful birds because they come in a flock to eat up all the fish in an area and have asked the government to rid the area of them. But this complaint is not exactly true. After flying over in flocks and catching fish individually, the common cormorants find a sandbar to sit on and feed, and then they rest and dry their wings. Snowy egrets and gray herons are clever enough to stay close to the cormorants so they can steal some of the catch. Some cormorants choose to rest before they have dinner. Later, long before the sun sets, they flock back to their colonies. But they do not remain in a large flock all the way. One by one, in smaller flocks, they leave the original flock to go back to their separate colonies. The flock that returns to Shinobazu Pond is small in size. The common cormorants in Shinobazu Pond never lose their reserve seat perches when they come home from feeding. In a crowded colony like Shinobazu Pond, all the common cormorants who live there have secured their perches. Let's take a closer look at a common cormorant, from its head to its feet. It measures about 80 centimeters long. Its wingspread is more than 1 meter wide. The average common cormorant weighs about 2 kilograms. Its back is brownish rather than black, with clear feather patterns trimmed in black. Its hard tail feathers serve as a rudder in the water. Its eyes are located at almost the very front of its head. This enables the common cormorant to accurately measure the distance to its prey. Its round eyes are a beautiful emerald color. They are also specifically adapted for fishing. The lenses are soft and flexible enough to focus well in water. It seems that something glistens in a common cormorant's eyes. This shine comes from a translucent film called a nictitating membrane, which works like swimming goggles underwater. Common cormorants have white cheeks. Their upper beak is brown on top and whitish beneath, and their lower beak is also whitish. The yellow sags beneath the bill prove that its family belongs to the order Pelecaniformes. These sags serve as a radiator that emits heat from within the body. The nostrils on the bills disappeared from cormorants through natural selection long ago because they were not conducive to diving. Baby common cormorants have nostrils when they hatch, but the nostrils close within a week to 10 days after hatching. Common cormorant's upper beak is slightly larger and hangs over the lower beak. There are some openings where these portions meet, so the birds can breathe without opening their beaks. Once they catch a fish, the hooked tip of their bill helps trap it. Their bill opens very wide from its base, so water doesn't pour into their throat when they catch fish. You can see here that their bill opens all the way up to behind their eyes. They also preen themselves with their bill. Their feet, which they use to propel themselves in water, are far behind at the end of the body. That's why a common cormorant looks like it's standing straight when it perches on a tree. The webs of their feet are quite soft and flexible. This enables them to perch skillfully on small branches that other web-footed birds find too difficult to manage. Common cormorants can efficiently bend their webbed feet to hold a branch firmly. Their toes are good for scratching, too. And of course, they serve perfectly as propellers when common cormorants swim, either on the surface or underwater. They use their webbed feet when taking flight from the water. Looking closely, we can see them pushing the surface of the water by using both of their webbed feet at the same time to take off into the air. Most aquatic birds, including birds of the order Anseriformes, push their feet alternately against the surface to take off. While common cormorants may take off differently, they use their feet to land on water just like other aquatic birds. Common cormorants' walk never looks graceful, and although their blackish bodies do not look very impressive, they provide good camouflage when fishing. In fact, while common cormorants may look awkward on the ground, they are unsurpassed underwater swimmers and efficient fish catchers. It's September. There are a few late-blooming lotus flowers in Shinobazu Pond. Now is the time when the common cormorants start rearranging their perches. For the males, the perch they end up with will also be their nesting site. Once his site is secured, a male begins displaying and shows his nest site to females. This male has secured his site in the tree. See how proud he looks? However, common cormorants are innately ground dwellers. Many males secure their nest sites on the ground, even when sites are available in the trees. These males will then display, mate, and build their nests on the ground. We can easily tell the beginning of common cormorants' mating season because they grow white down on their head and neck, and a scarlet spot appears below their eyes. White down also appears on their thighs. These signs show that they're ready to breed. It's not always easy for a male to get a female. Here's a female who is indifferent to the male's courtship. A female who has flown to a male's site will fly away if the couple does not get along well. But another female will soon fly over. Indeed, it's been said that shutting one door opens another. If the couple likes each other, they'll start nestling their bodies together and stimulating each other. This develops into copulation. These common cormorants are now in the middle of their mating season. After mating, the pair starts building their nest together. During this season, males are often seen fetching nest material. Common cormorant couples share the work of incubating and raising the young, but collecting the nest material is always the male's job. However, they'll collect any available material for their nest. The tall weeds growing on the islet are perfect nesting material. The nest material painstakingly gathered by the male is never safe. Sometimes, a common cormorant will extend its neck to steal a piece of material from its neighbor's nest. This leads to a fierce tug of war. Sometimes, both the male and female tug together. You can never tell which side will win. However, once a male has some nest material stolen by a neighbor, he gives it up rather easily and never attacks the neighbor over it. Through both gathering material and poaching from neighbors, nesting goes on. When the nest is completed, the female lays 3 or 4 eggs. Common cormorant eggs are slightly smaller than a chicken's. It's easy to spot an incubating common cormorant because the tail feathers stand up diagonally, like this. When a common cormorant sits on eggs, the design of its body brings the tail feathers up. The eggs are incubated for about a month. Then the eggs hatch. It is usually a week after hatching before the young birds show their heads from under the body of their parent. Not all the eggs of common cormorants hatch. In this nest, only 2 eggs have hatched. In this nest on the ground as well, only 2 young ones have been hatched. In some nests, only 1 egg has hatched. But considering that no eggs hatched at all in some nests, perhaps this pair is lucky to have hatched even 1. Unhatched eggs are left here and there near the nests. Some eggs do not hatch even after a month. We never know if the chicks died in the eggs or the eggs were unfertilized in the first place. However, in some cases, 3 young ones are hatched to one couple. Here, perhaps almost all the eggs have hatched. In very rare cases, 4 young ones are found hatched to one couple. However, feeding them is very difficult for their parents, and it is unusual for all 4 to grow to adulthood. Only once every 3 or 4 years is a case reported in which all 4 fledglings successfully leave their nest. Here's a nest with 4 fledglings. The mating season for a pair of common cormorants takes about 5 months, from the male's display through copulation, incubation, and raising the fledgling birds. However, when we look at the colony as a whole, mating season starts in September and goes on through July of the following year. No other bird has such a long breeding season as common cormorants. These common cormorants hatched about 2 weeks ago and are growing up steadily. These 4 young ones are growing up as well. How do the parents feed their young? The way common cormorants feed their young is unique. The parent lets its offspring insert their heads into the parent's mouth, and it then regurgitates the food into the mouths of its young. When the young birds are still babies, they are fed on well-digested fish. As they grow, the food is gradually less digested. After one parent feeds them, the other gives them water, and we can't tell which parent is male and which is female. The feeding process of common cormorants may not look pretty, but it is reliable. In 20 to 30 days after hatching, the baby birds grow dramatically. One of the 4 fledglings is missing. What's become of it? As we had feared, one of them has fallen out of the nest. Crows, who are very quick at finding food, have already been pecking at the body. But the surrounding common cormorants do not seem to have reacted at all. So was it too difficult for this couple to raise 4 babies? We don't know if the dead one fell out of the nest or was pushed. The dead birds will be completely eaten by crows in a few days. Fortunately, the other set of 4 babies is growing well so far. At about this point in raising the young, a problem arises. As the baby birds have grown, their heads have become larger, and the parents have to open their mouths very wide to let in the young birds. So the parents begin to dislike feeding their young. The young ones are growing fast and are always hungry. They persistently ask for food, and the parents hate it. But the parents don't drive the young out of the nest because of their cries for food. However, the parents may leave their own nest if their young are too insistent. Autumn has now come quietly to the woods around Ueno. About 1 month after hatching, the young common cormorants are already practicing flapping their wings. They're getting ready to leave their nests. Soon, they will fly from one tree to another and to the pond. One day, the fledgling will fly into the sky for the first time. But the way they fly is awkward, and they soon return to their tree. By this time, most of the nests have been broken down and are largely gone. However, the original location of the nest continues to be the territory of the young birds. They can already swim well with the adult common cormorants. Yet, they are certainly not bashful about asking for their dinner. The flying skills of the fledglings improve remarkably in about a week. Three or 4 months after hatching, the young common cormorants will fly off with the flock to catch fish. On their first few fishing trips, when they land on the water with the flock, the young birds stay on the surface and watch the older birds dive for fish. When older birds come back to the surface with fish in their mouths, the young common cormorants snatch the fish from them and feed themselves. By doing this, they learn they can always feed themselves by following the flock. Before long, they start diving themselves. They soon learn that fish are near the bottom. All they have to do from then on is follow their instincts. They will gradually get better at fishing. And eventually, they will leave their parents and set out on their own. What's become of the 4 young birds that were growing steadily? None of them are on the branch where their nest used to be. Have they all left the nest safely? They're not on the other 2 islets either. There they are. See the 4 young birds on the surface of the pond? They may be the ones we've been watching. At least, we hope they're the ones. And now, how much do people around the pond know about the common cormorants? We asked them and found out that about 30% knew the common cormorants lived in the pond, but most of the rest didn't even know the name common cormorants. Regardless of the people's awareness of common cormorants, new colonies have been found in different places in Japan since the 1980s. As water pollution in Japan has decreased, common cormorants, which are not designed as a game bird, have gradually increased in number. However, as their numbers have increased, common cormorants have made their presence felt in ways that aren't always appreciated. Because of the increasing volume of common cormorant droppings, more and more forests are suffering tree loss. We may consider the peaceful coexistence of man and nature as our ideal, but it's not always easy to achieve. Look at these healthy young adult birds. These young birds will have to look elsewhere for a home after they leave their nests. A safe colony, such as the one in Shinobazu Pond, where they can coexist with the people who live nearby, may reach the upper limit when its population reaches about 1,000 birds. Whether they like it or not, these young common cormorants will fly into a world unknown to them.